What does it mean to be really honest? And is that even possible or recommended? There's a destructive lie about honesty that's a home and relationship wrecker of note, and I'm calling that out today. I'm talking about radical honesty, saying everything you think and feel without any filter, as though that's the path to authentic living, as though being brutally honest with your partner, your kids, your friends is somehow useful. I'm Neil Bierbaum, Master Certified Coach, and I've spent 4 decades as an adult testing what works for personal development. In this video, I'm going to show you how radical honesty is impossible, yes, and therefore fake, yes. I'll explain how it's the ultimate self-deception, a total lie, and a trap for fools. And I think you know what I mean by radical honesty. It's the parent who doesn't believe in lying and so tells their child they're not very smart, or when they're going to the dentist that, yes, it will hurt. They tell themselves they're just preparing them for the real world. Or the partner who chips away at their spouse's self-esteem by correcting them in social settings and defends it with, I'm just being honest, I don't believe in sugarcoating things. Or the classic, I tell it like it is, people just can't handle the truth. Maybe you've been on the receiving end of one of these truth-telling exercises, and that felt a lot more like an attack than an act of care. I've been a coach for 20 years. Honesty and authenticity is a core part of what I do, so I've seen hundreds of clients struggle with this. I'm going to show you why being loyal to every thought that crosses your mind is not authenticity. And in the next video, I'll show you what does work to create honest, authentic relationships. Let's get into it. The concept of radical honesty was popularized by a psychotherapist named Brad Blanton. Back in 1996, he wrote a book by that name. And the core premise is this. It's quite simple. Always be completely honest. Never tell even white lies. Say exactly what you're thinking and feeling in the moment. No filtering, no managing your words. He tells you to pay attention to these 3 things: the sensations in your body, the world in front of you, and the thoughts going through your mind. Then you report them out loud. No filter. The upside, he promises, is freedom from the stress of lying, deeper connections, liberation from social pretense. A simpler, more authentic life. On the surface, it sounds appealing, right? I mean, who wants to live behind a mask? Who wants to build a relationship on polite dishonesty? As always, there's a tiny kernel of truth in what's being said and what he's said. Lying, even small lies, does create stress. You might get found out, and you have to remember what you said. So research shows that deception increases cognitive load and can affect your mental health. And radical honesty advocates say that by eliminating all the lies, you remove that burden. I mean, sure, it's liberating to not care what others think, to stop telling white lies and editing yourself. And greater honesty certainly can be necessary in close relationships where there is established trust. I'm concerned about your drinking is something that needs to be said, not avoided. I'm not happy in this marriage is information your partner deserves to hear. When you're parenting, sometimes kids do need straight talk. A teenager experimenting with drugs needs clear, direct communication about the consequences, not polite deflection. And personally, being honest with yourself, acknowledging your actual thoughts and feelings, rather than pretending they don't exist, well, that's fundamental to personal growth. So yes, we could certainly do with more honesty within ourselves and between ourselves and others. But does that mean we could move along a continuum or maybe change the ratio between naked truth and sugarcoating? Or is the only alternative to flip to the opposite, to go radical? Why, people, are we so black and white? Because here's the thing about radical honesty. It doesn't exist. It cannot exist. And I'll show you why. If you've ever observed your mind as mindfulness teaches you to do, you'll see that thoughts arise of their own volition. It's not like you decide to have that next thought. You just find yourself with it. So you're not choosing the thoughts that you do have. They just happen, and you pick up on them. In other words, there is some part of you, that part that you become familiar with when you meditate, that chooses which thoughts to follow and which thoughts to ignore. And if you expressed every single thought that arose in your mind, you'd firstly exhaust yourself and everyone around you. And secondly, you'd probably embarrass yourself and even potentially harm yourself. You wouldn't, for example, share some sexual thought in the office or be radically honest with your boss if you think they're an idiot. If doing so would get you fired. Now, you can't tell me that people who practice radical honesty never have such thoughts. I've been meditating, observing the mind, my own mind, for nearly 40 years. I know what I'm talking about. So right there, we can see that even the most devoted radical honesty practitioner is constantly doing a background check for that line they won't cross. No matter what you claim, you will have some filter, some self-protection limit. There'll be some things you just know you can't say, and some point at which you can no longer say certain things, even if it's only when you're being tortured in a jail cell by foreign agents. So, therefore, plain and simple, we can see that radical honesty is firstly impossible and therefore fake, and secondly, entirely selfish. It's impossible because you're selecting thoughts to express whether you like it or not, whether you're willing to admit it or not. The only reason you might think you're not doing it is because you lack the awareness to see what I've just shared. So to claim radical honesty is to lack self-awareness. Full stop. And it's selfish because you'll say anything, even if it may be experienced by others as harmful, as long as it doesn't harm you. I promise you, I'll put you to the test, and at some point, you'll lie to protect yourself, even if it's the lie that you'd never lie to protect yourself. So radical honesty is a wholly fake and narcissistic act. The end. And not quite the end. Let's go into it at a slightly deeper level. Just to make sure we leave radical honesty with not a single leg to stand on, here are some other counters to what its adherents, its practitioners, would argue. In other words, the beliefs or rationalizations that they would present. So the first one is they might argue that their thoughts and feelings are real and true. They're not. They're not even yours if you're that person practicing radical honesty. You select from the noise in your head and attach meaning and identity to them. And your primary choice factor is how much it impacts you, whether it's dangerous to you or not. And we've looked at the more obvious example, like not being rude to your boss or sharing sexual thoughts at the workplace. There's more abstract and subtle ones too, like if your wife says, "Do I look fat in these?" or your child asks if it will hurt at the dentist the next day, and you say a blunt yes. You'll only say that if you're getting something out of it, even if that something is spiteful, like domination. Ego loves to dominate. Or maybe you're doing it for no other reason than radical honesty itself, in which case you're getting to prove a point to yourself, maybe to everyone else, about yourself. Another thing the ego loves, being right, proving a point. And so again, it's about you proving your point. So can you see, so far, nothing real or true has occurred in these examples I've given, because there's no objective truth about what looks fat. And besides, your wife is not literally asking if she looks fat, she's asking if she looks acceptable. Your child is asking if they'll be okay. If you cared one bit, you'd hear that and answer more kindly and gently and appropriately. And we'll cover how that appropriateness goes together with being honest later on. It's one of the keys to practicing authentic honesty. The second thing that radical honesty practitioners might argue is that their thoughts and feelings need to be expressed. Very often, probably most often, they don't. Just as you don't want to hear every thought from another person, they don't need yours. The fact is, you're already filtering out stuff anyway. That's undeniable. So you can filter out one more thing for the sake of not doing harm. It won't cost you anything. To think the world needs to have your thoughts, your opinion on a matter is also egotistical. So let's say someone is late for a meeting. They tell a white lie, but you know the real reason. So you come with your radical honesty and you say, he had too much to drink last night, or he put too much chili on his pizza, so now he's got the runs. He's been in the bathroom. Or two people are tentatively exploring a relationship and they're not ready to go public, but you spill the beans in front of everyone and embarrass them. Chances are very good that neither those people nor the audience needed any of that information at that time. It was all about you showing how radically honest you are. So if you refuse to give up radical honesty, then maybe add silence as an option and see if the world notices. Here's a clue, it won't. The world will breathe a sigh of relief. There's some honesty for you. Another thing a practitioner of radical honesty might argue is that their thoughts and feelings need to be expressed as is, in the exact form that they occur. Also not true. Thoughts and behavior occur within a context that is defined by your intention. An example would be if your boss expects you to finish a project or close a deal by tomorrow, your thoughts and your actions will be very focused on that until it's over. What's interesting is that your feelings might not agree. You might be angry that you've been given this much work at the last minute. Radical honesty says you should lose it with your boss, but we already know you're not going to do that. You're going to finish the project instead and complain to your spouse, which is appropriate because your behavior in that case is being governed by your context, which is what I'm saying actually happens and should happen in truth, in reality, whether you profess radical honesty or not. Again, we'll see context and appropriateness as key to authentic honesty in the next video. But by the same token, if your wife asks you if she looks fat or the kid wants to know if the visit to the dentist will hurt, Your response will arise within a context defined by your intention. Is your intention to prove a point? Is your intention to care for the other? And do you have one predetermined intention that is unchangeable that you must be honest to? Is more the point. Or might your intention be ambiguous? Might you need to choose between two alternative options? Like, I could do it for this reason, or I could do it for that reason. I could do it to help the other person and be kind. I could do it to just prove radical honesty and relieve myself of the burden. You did it for the sake of keeping your job. You chose between them. So it's definitely not cast in stone. You definitely can choose, and you do when it suits you. We've seen that. We know that. So if what comes out of your mouth is justified by radical honesty at any time, in other words, if you justify what you just said by claiming it's radical honesty, it's probably only because what you said was cruel and not caring, and you know it, and you're looking for a reason to justify it. The fourth thing that practitioners of radical honesty might argue is that their words are just words, and words don't hurt or harm unless the other person lets them. This can be true if the other person is a monk or a saint, or in unconscious denial like our radical honesty practitioner. Most people aren't, so words do matter. You'll use them well when something matters to you, so you can use them well when it matters to someone else. It's just a matter of willingness. And the practitioner might argue that their words are the right ones because they're true. Well, they're not. We've dealt with that. They might argue that they can even remotely pull this off, that it's a real thing. It's not. You can't. We've seen that too. And finally, they might argue that they would be radically honest even at their own expense. Well, we definitely know the answer to that by now. So, radical honesty is impossible and narcissistic. No question. But that leaves you with a question. If radical honesty doesn't work, what does? How do you be honest without being brutal? How do you be authentic without being boundaryless? How do you tell the truth without using it as a weapon? That's what I'll show you in the next video. I'll give you a framework called the 3 levels of honesty. It's practical, and it's tested over 10,000 coaching hours, and it works. Here's what you need to know for now. Honesty isn't about what comes out of your mouth. It's about what you do with the truth that's inside you. And there's a way to own your thoughts and feelings without doing damage or making them someone else's problem. I'm Neil Bierbaum, Master Certified Coach with 20 years and 10,000 hours testing what actually works in the real world, not just in theory. Subscribe so you don't miss the next video. And let me know in the comments, have you been on the receiving end of someone's radical honesty? Share your story. I'd love to hear it. Because your best self deserves better than radical honesty.